Alright guys, how's it going? Time for another episode of the Tattoo Knowledgebase. I thought today I'd like to cover aftercare, or at least the aftercare that we at the studio here recommend the most, which is Tegaderm Second Skin Aftercare. I don't plan on addressing the more old school traditional methods of aftercare, so I'm not going to get into dry healing. I'm not going to get into saran wrap and clean it after an hour. I won't be touching on dry lock, any of those. I'll only be addressing Tegaderm and all the things you need to know about Tegaderm. So, having said that, why don't we start with explaining what Tegaderm actually is. So, the best way to describe it in kind of easy terms is it is a synthetic, non-latex adhesive barrier for your tattoos. You could also sort of think of it as a big clear sticker. You put it on after your tattoo's been completed and cleaned. You then leave it on for 4 days or so. Hospitals and clinics will actually tell you 7 to maybe even 12 days. With the studio, we usually find that people start losing patience after about 4 days, so 4 days seems fairly safe. Long enough, at least, for the tattoo underneath to seal up. So the benefits of using Tegaderm primarily lie in the fact that what it's really doing is replicating a blister. It is a synthetic blister. It is precluding anything from getting into it. Any microbial interference can't get in while your Tegaderm's in place, but it's also holding all of your body's natural juices in place. The thing is your body, as it produces sebum and lymph and plasma and blood and ink and all the gory stuff that you have with a fresh tattoo, if your body has it held in place, like Tegaderm does, it means that while your tattoo is healing, it can't dry out. If your tattoo can't dry out, it can't scab. If it can't scab, it can't crack. If it can't crack, it can't marble up and leave you big chunks of missing ink. It is very, very ideal. And the best part about Tegaderm for you newbies, it's clear, so you can still show your tattoo off. And let's face it, that's the whole point of getting a tattoo. You want to be able to show it off. So Tegaderm is a very, very effective way to accelerate your healing process without any worry or fear or concerns that anything's getting it into to infect. It's very, very, very good. I don't necessarily like using the term game changer. It seems to be overused now in society, but in this case, it's appropriate. Tegaderm really, truly is a game changer for tattoo healing. Now, why don't we address quickly how to actually put it on? All right, so when you've got your Tegaderm sheet, you want to peel off the back like this, carefully using the edges. You want to apply the top, smooth that out, try to avoid any air bubbles as best you can, then peel off the top. There's your Tegaderm. Usually you'll want to do this in sections, otherwise you're just going to be fighting with it the whole time, trying to get smooth application. It's important that if you do layer it like this, that you make sure there is a significant overlap. Because if you do not have a significant overlap, there's a chance that that overlap can part, and that's very bad. You do not want your Tegaderm to part. Top layer off. And there, she's protected for the next 4 days. So, that's how you put your Tegaderm on. But there are some concerns, and you need to be aware of what those concerns are. The first concern with Tegaderm mostly lies in what it looks like the next day, and this tends to panic a lot of people. Because overnight, that first night, is your most weepy night, when you get up in the morning, it can look, frankly, quite frightening. There's a lot of goop and a lot of gore in there. Sort of like this. So what you see there is the next morning after a 2.5 hour session I had done on my thigh. All of that horrific gore that you're looking at is not actually hurting the tattoo in any way. It's actually helping it, but it sure looks gross. This is a concern for people who aren't used to it because they'll panic and think, oh, there's something wrong. It isn't hurting the tattoo. In situations like that, though, you can replace the Tegaderm. The next morning, you can go back to your tattoo artist, your studio, have them take it off, clean it properly, and apply a second layer. The second layer you'll want to leave on for about 3 days. Again, it isn't hurting the tattoo to have that much goop and gore on it, but generally people don't want to walk around for 4 days with that kind of pillow of mess on their fresh new piece of art. It's very worth keeping in mind that when it comes to the juices and disgusting stuff that your body's producing, your body will produce more of it if there's more damage to the skin. So if you've just got a small tattoo with a little bit of script, it's probably not going to be overly juicy or gory. You should be pretty good to just leave that on for 4 days. If you've had a 3 to 6 hour session with a lot of heavy black work, color pounding, shading, things like that, you are going to be pretty excessively gory, as you can see. This is when you need the Tegaderm the most though, to keep that whole tattoo as wet as possible, as long as possible. The next concern is that sometimes people can develop an irritation right along the edge where the Tegaderm and the skin meets. This can be a little bit like a cut, almost like somebody's taken an X-Acto knife and just lightly cut along the edge. It doesn't hurt the tattoo at all, but it's itchy and hurts a little bit and can frankly be a little bit alarming. Tends to be a little bit more common in soft tissue areas. So if you've been tattooed anywhere near the ditch of your arm, breast tissue, thigh tissue, areas where there's a lot of elasticity and softness tend to be a little bit more susceptible to that slight abrasion. Again, it doesn't hurt the tattoo, but just be aware that if it happens, it's not totally out of the normal. Very rarely, some people will develop a full chemical burn reaction to the adhesive itself. This isn't a result of latex, because again, Tegaderm is latex free. But if this does occur, be aware that it is not a question mark sort of event. It's very binary. It is black and white. You will not be sitting there going, am I having this reaction? Your body will fucking tell you that something is wrong. Everywhere being touched by the Tegaderm will turn bright, bright red, lobster red, and it will burn badly. You absolutely will know. It also happens very quickly, usually within an hour to 3 hours. If that does occur, you need to immediately remove the Tegaderm and switch to an old school healing method. Keep it clean, keep it moisturized, that sort of thing. But also be aware that it is very rare for that to happen. We've been using this product at the studio for about 3 years now. We've only had 2 people have that happen, and in both cases they knew it was going to happen. Generally speaking, if your skin is that sensitive, something else will have done it too, like a Band-Aid or something. Still better to know that it is a potential though in case it happens than to go in just saying, no problem, don't need to worry about it. Finally, and this is the really big one, if anything ruptures your Tegaderm, you must remove it immediately. So a cat claw, a dog claw, a nail, anything that is sharp enough to cause the Tegaderm to part, you have to remove it immediately and clean it as well as you can. Do not leave ruptured Tegaderm on your skin. Bacterial interference in and of itself isn't particularly terrifying unless you give it 2 things. You need a warm biologically active environment and you need time. Time equals bacteria replicating, you get enough bacteria and infection. Tegaderm prevents all of that from happening, but if something tears the Tegaderm, now you have a situation where there's an ingress point for bacterial interference, and the Tegaderm is going to hold the bacteria in place in that wound. It can be very dangerous if that happens. So if anything tears your Tegaderm, you must remove it immediately. Keeping in mind as well, though, that tearing Tegaderm is not that easy. It's pretty tough stuff. Still, pay attention to it. Now, having gone through all of this, I can guarantee you that a Tegaderm heal is so smooth, so fast, and so free from the usual hassles of tattoo healing that you will never want to tattoo heal any other way ever again. Finally, there is how to remove it. So you've had it on for 4 days. The adhesive of Tegaderm is pretty tenacious. One thing you don't want to do when taking your Tegaderm off is treat it like it's a Band-Aid. You don't want to just grab a corner and rip it off as fast as you can, because the adhesive will bond so tightly to that skin, it'll probably take the first layer of skin with it. What you want to do is take a corner of it and very, very slowly pull it away from the skin at kind of a 90-degree angle, stretching the adhesive and stretching the plastic as much as possible so that the adhesive actually pops apart. You can hear it click, 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 click as you pull it. Do this in the shower slowly but surely, and it should come off fairly easily. For example, we have shot a little bit of video for you to see of the best way to take it off, like this. So as you can see, slow but steady, stretch the plastic, you'll hear it pop apart. That's the easiest way to remove your Tegaderm. 4 days, pop it off, give it a good thorough wash. Then from there on, you're basically healed up. Just use whatever moisturizer you prefer the most to keep the flakiness to a minimum. Now, obviously water-based unscented is still gonna be your best bet, but it is no longer the same concern as it is with the old school methods of moisturizer. If you happen to have vitamin E oil, that'll be okay. If you happen to have coconut butter, that's okay too. In this case, all you're really doing is keeping the flaking down, because by the time the Tegaderm comes off, you're already sealed up. You don't have to worry as much like you did with older school methods of keeping that tattoo soft. Again, once you've used Tegaderm, you don't ever want to do any other way of healing a tattoo. It is the best option to heal fast, clean, and consequence-free.